Tell me about what it is.
Those things without any partial hint of what I feel for those girls and what I feel for my wife, but none of this would have happened, so I wasn't thinking.
Okay.
In both Bella and CeCe's autopsy reports, it states that the cause of death was asphyxiation due to smothering. In one part of CeCe's report, it actually says the likely cause of death is asphyxiation due to smothering. Asphyxia just means the body's oxygen supply was cut off, and there are many ways that this can happen. Some examples of how physical asphyxia may cause death are choking or aspiration, suffocation or smothering, and strangulation. This can also happen with asthma, anaphylaxis due to an allergic reaction, and drowning. So my question is, how do we know that Bella and CeCe actually died from asphyxiation by smothering and not asphyxiation from another cause? Since there are many other ways asphyxia can happen. As much as I hate to think about it, as horrible as it may be, could they have been alive when they went into those tanks? I hope they weren't, and there may not even be sufficient enough evidence to prove one way or another. But there are some things that made me at least question it and do some research on death by asphyxiation, and I wanted to share some of what I found. Drowning is a form of death by suffocation because oxygen is displaced by water, other liquids, or gases. It fills the lungs and eventually causes the person to drown. But what a lot of people don't know, what I didn't know before researching this, is that drowning is not determined by whether or not there is water in the lungs. The typical way that people determine whether someone drowned is the indication that there is water in their lungs. This is just not true. And diagnosing a true drowning is one of the most difficult in the field. Not all drowning victims have water in their lungs, and determining if a person drowned is usually one of exclusion, requiring information from the crime scene, recovery scene, and the medical history. Meaning, if all other causes of death can be excluded and the body was recovered from water, then drowning may be diagnosed as the cause of death. Whether or not fluids were found in the lungs does not determine if the person did or didn't drown. There's something that happens to some drowning victims without all the fancy medical terms. Basically, a spasm happens. It's a defense mechanism, and it causes the throat to close up. This prevents water or other liquids from entering the lungs, but it also cuts off the oxygen supply. So it causes the person to die from asphyxiation. This makes drowning one of the most difficult causes of death to determine for a pathologist. It is determined only after all other causes of death have been ruled out. There is also something called chemical asphyxia, where a chemical keeps oxygen from reaching the blood cells. If the chemicals are breathed in, the gases build up in the body and replace the oxygen in the blood, therefore causing death by asphyxiation. Chris Watts describes smothering his girls in the Wisconsin confession.
And then the girls, right? Okay. You mentioned Bella was first. CeCe was first, okay. Where exactly was she when it happened?
In the back seat.
Okay. Was she just right next to Bella?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, so once again, was it a hand over her face? Was it?
There was a blanket over and my hand.
And then your hand. Okay. And then so that just stopped her from breathing, type thing. Okay. Did she struggle at all?
I don't think so, but I was blocking her face and my hand was right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had one hand here and one hand over her mouth?
And were you just pushing her against the back of the seat type thing? Okay. What was Bella doing?
She was sitting there next to it. She didn't know what was going on.
Okay. Could she see you? Okay. And then, did that take a minute or two?
Didn't feel it. Nothing. I didn't have no like concept of time at this
Okay.
point.
Okay. So she's in the back seat. Okay. And then once she's gone, then is it Bella next, or did you pull CeCe out?
I pulled CeCe out.
Okay, so once CeCe's gone, Bella's still there in the car alive, and then you pulled CeCe out. What'd you do with her?
And I think
Okay. So she went into the tank, and Bella was still in the back of the truck alive. Okay. When we talked the very first time we met, when we were talking about this, it was a matter of just lowering her down. Okay, and so she went in feet first. Okay. Was she able to fit pretty well? Was it snug?
I think so.
Okay. Did you have to like move her around a little bit and get her in there?
I think so.
Okay. All
But
right.
no, I didn't have to like, hit her like,
Okay.
like that.
It's not like you stomped her in?
No.
Okay. And then close the hatch?
Yes.
Okay. And then went down to Bella. Tell me what happened there.
She said what happened to CeCe. Or she asked if it was the same thing, the exact same thing that happened to me as CeCe.
Did she ask you that? Okay. So Bella's pretty smart. How did she sound when she asked you that, Chris?
She had that soft voice she always had.
Yeah. And what exactly did she say?
She said exactly the same thing that happened to me as CeCe. And then I said, I don't even remember what I said.
Okay.
I don't know if I just said yes, like a horrible person, or if I just put that blanket over her too and did the same thing.
Same blanket, same way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She said, no, Daddy. And that's the last thing she said.
Did she say no, Daddy, like, please, no, Daddy type thing? Did she say saying, don't do it?
And she said, no, Daddy.
Okay. Same way, hand on neck, hand over mouth, or hand over blanket, which is over mouth? Okay. Did that take a couple minutes?
I feel like it.
Okay. Then what?
I just noticed she had a couple spots like over her eye or something, and I picked her up. And same thing.
Okay. Now Bella was a little bit bigger. Was she harder to get in?
It felt like it a little bit.
Okay. And so was it a matter of just kind of maneuvering her? All right. So then they're both in there. Is there any reason to think they were alive when they fell in? Okay. You're pretty sure? Okay.
This confession took place on February 18th, 2019. 2 months later, in a letter dated April 23rd, 2019, Chris Watts writes about a different version of events. In one of his letters written to Sherilyn Cadle, he tells her, "If God put it on your heart that there's more to this than what I told the FBI, you are correct." Then he tells her that he plans to tell her more than what he told the FBI. So he writes in his letter that he had actually tried to smother the girls in their beds that night, and that after he strangled Shanann, they got back up. He talks about how shocked he was and says he doesn't know how that was possible. Then he says something that I have never been able to make sense of. When describing what he did, he says on August 13th, he went into the girls' room first before him and Shanann had their argument. He says, "I went to Bella's room, then CeCe's room, and used a pillow from their bed." The next statement he makes is what confuses me. He says, "That's why the cause of death was smothering." Why would he say this unless he knew or suspected they actually died another way? He's describing how he thought he'd smothered them, but it didn't actually work, and then says that's why the cause of death was smothering. To me, it seems to suggest that they didn't die from smothering. It just looked like they did, because he had tried to, but failed. The signs of smothering were there, but is that really how their lives ultimately ended? Something else that never made sense to me either is if he had tried to smother them once and had planned to just smother them again at the oil site, then why would he make them ride in the back of the truck with their mother's body? Why not just do that again at home? He took a chance on taking them out in front of the cameras. It just makes me wonder if he had a different plan, especially if he really did tell Sherilyn Cadle that he put them in the tanks to make sure that they didn't get back up again. Who knows with Chris Watts? Maybe he made the whole story up. He's lied so much that nobody knows what the truth is anymore. But for me, sadly, this will always be a question mark. Were they already gone before he put them in the tanks? While I was putting this together and having all these thoughts about what these poor girls went through, I kept having a dream that I was falling into those tanks. As I was falling, everything around me was black. All I could see was a small circle of light at the top of the tank. Through the small circle, I could see the blue sky. I couldn't hear anything. There was total silence. When I reached the bottom, my vision got really cloudy, but I could see in my peripheral vision a cloud of blackness. The blackness slowly covered my eyes as I was still staring up at the only light I could see. The small blue circle of the sky slowly disappeared. In my dream, this played over and over like a video clip on repeat. It was so disturbing. After I woke up, I didn't want to go back to sleep that night. This is not the first dream that I've had about the Chris Watts case, but I really hope that it's the last.